You're watching Next Pitch, the student athlete playbook for parents raising tomorrow's athletes.
Hi, Anthony Leveretz, host of the Next Pitch podcast, and I am joined by Hannah Huesman of Mental Sweat, mental performance coach extraordinaire. We are on episode number 17, and we've got 2 to go. And today we're going to talk about self-discipline and building great habits. Hannah, thank you so much for joining me for episode number 17.
Thanks for having me. Excited to do it.
All right. Well, let's dive in here. First question. Is it true that we are always building habits? It's either we're just building good ones or bad ones.
Yes. 100%.
Okay. So no matter what, and there's this old saying out there that practice makes perfect. And what I always told my kids is that actually practice makes habit. Perfect practice makes perfect.
That's what I've heard. Yeah.
Yeah. Is that something that you, you believe in? How do you think about that?
Yeah. It's something I absolutely believe in. Actually, I should have had this cued, but I think I can say it. One of my favorite quotes is, it's not about the number of reps you take. It's about the number of reps you're present when that you're present. It's the number of reps that you can be present that you take, something like that. And it's either, I think it's Michael Jordan or, it might be Kobe actually. It's one of my favorite quotes because it's not about the practice, the thousands and thousands of reps. Like truly, like that used to be something that I think impressed me. And that used to be something that the world, I think, kind of grasped onto, right? 10,000 hours to be an expert at something, right? Which that has been debunked now, right? If you are actually really disciplined and really present at what you do, it can actually happen a lot quicker than that. And so I think that goes along the same thing you're talking about, right? Just because you're physically getting the reps in doesn't mean you're just automatically going to get better. Just because you show up doesn't mean you're automatically going to get better. But the same goes true with the opposite, right? Take imagery, for example. You don't even have to show up, but if you're mentally doing what you're supposed to be doing, you can literally get better. So imagine if you do physically show up and you mentally show up, how much better you can actually be. So it's like this process of understanding there is value if you show up and give effort, but there's astronomically more value if you show up, give effort, and are present mentally.
I love that.
Yeah.
All right, starting young, and we talked a little bit about this off air, so I'm interested to hear your take on this. Family reaches out to you and says, I've got a 8, 9, 10, 11, 12-year-old kid, not happy with their habits. They're struggling with whatever that is. What is your message to that family about starting young with building solid habits?
Yeah, I think it's. Oh, when you talk about really young kids, which I would classify anything under the age of 12, 13, really young, as far as sports and performance go, right? Like, or elite level performance, if you will, right? Everybody go play soccer when you're 3 or 4, whatever. When you're talking about elite sports, I think young is still 12, 13, right? And under. And I've had a lot of parents call and say, I need help. She's struggling. He's struggling. He's not having fun anymore. This, that, and the other. And it's so hard. And I remember early in my career, I actually would take on young clients because I was like, sure, it's a client, whatever. And I would take them on. And it would, first of all, when's the last time you had a conversation with a 10-year-old?
Like, as often as I can, because I love talking to them. Because it takes me back in time.
It's great, but it's almost like you're talking to like a cartoon character.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. That's why it's fun.
It's so fun, but it's also very shallow.
Yes.
And not in like a bad way, but it's very superficial because that's their brains, right? Their brains aren't processing why the earth rotates. Like they're asking questions, right? They're asking why, what, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're like fully understanding the concept of certain things, right? That's why they're not in freaking calculus when they're in 4th grade. Okay.
They just learned how to color inside the lines on a chicken, right?
Literally. Literally. So when you call and you're like, well, I need to create confidence in my kid. I'm like, okay, well, the way I actually work with someone who is lacking confidence and wants to work on it is we have to get to the root problem. most freaking 10 and 12 and 8 and 4-year-olds don't know what the root problem is.
Right.
9 times out of 10, it's also probably mom or dad or the coach, right? And so it's like, it's really hard when working with youth to get to the bottom of the quote unquote issue, challenge, problem. And so when I'm working, I usually say I want to talk to the parent because the parent's the one who's going to have the most impact. And it's truly just staying calm. Like, do not be emotional. If you're emotional, your kid will be emotional. Okay. If your coach is emotional, kind of going back to what we said in one of the last episodes, then that gives you the opportunity to be the like rock stoic figure in their life. Not that emotions are bad, but if you're being emotional about their performance, what in the world do you expect them to be? Right. And so, first and foremost, don't be emotional, be consistent in your approach, and then like talk with them through whatever it is that they're going through. Okay, what's going on? Why does this stink? What's your process here? A lot of times it's irrational, right? Like, and they don't know why. All they know is that it's not a good feeling. Like, I don't like this. I'm afraid of this. I'm scared of this, whatever. And so honestly, the only thing you can do is rep it out. And in a very calm setting, in a non-embarrassing, non-judgmental, that's from you, right? From the parent setting where they can just go rep it out. And if they fail, they fail. But at least they're only failing in front of you instead of the whole coach. And like, it's not this big scream fest, right? It's like there is a hurdle they have to get over. And a lot of times you hear youth coaches be like, oh, it's just a mental block. And it's like, okay, well, what are we actually doing about it? And you can't fault youth coaches. They might not have time to take your kid one-on-one. And this might take a long time, right? This might take an hour a day of just like calm, cool, and collected. Let's go after this and see where we can get. But it's usually solved or at least helped significantly if the parent or the guardian can stay calm, talk a little bit through it, and then go rep it out. Not in a sweat it out 1,000 reps like we started the conversation today, but in a very like conscientious, what are we doing, purposeful intention. And then when they freaking do it right, by God, you better go crazy.
Celebrate. Yeah.
Like you go crazy and then you let them go crazy and you let them scream and you let them run around. And then, but if they do it right, the whole point is to reinforce that feeling. Okay. And so it's like, do it again, do it again, do it again. Like the perfect example to compare little kids is also the yips. Okay. You think about the yips in professional baseball. When a player gets the yips, it's disastrous. Right. And I've worked with at least a dozen guys who have legitimately had the yips. And it's the same concept. We pull them out of the crowd. We go on a backfield. It's usually a pitcher, right? I grab a catcher who I trust, who isn't going to laugh at them, who isn't going to make fun of them. They're just going to go chase the balls that fly over their head or that get spiked into the ground, right? It's a very unthreatening environment. But the whole point is they have to re-feel the motion externally and internally, mentally and physically, that feels good to remind them of what it feels like to do it correctly. So once they finally get to that point, then it's like rep it out, rep it out, rep it out, rep it out, because we're trying to get their brain to remember what that feeling actually is. And so a lot of times with kids, they've been able to do something and for some reason they just can't make a free throw, or they can't do a back handspring anymore, or they're afraid to do a vault, whatever it is, right? It's usually one motion or one thing, one performance, and they just have to remember what it feels like again. And so when they do experience it, it's like we have to get those good reps to outweigh the fearful, irrational, maybe it's one bad rep, but it's outweighing all the previous good. And then it's kind of amazing. They're better at rebounding once they feel it than adults are, because adults can be like, well, I know this can go bad tomorrow again, where kids are like, yeah, I got it back. And it's like they're way more resilient because they think less.
That's awesome.
So long term, it's good. Short term, you just really got to be patient when it comes to kids. That's my soapbox on young athletes who are struggling and it gets pointed, hey, this might be a mental issue.
It's so good. You kind of answered my next question, but I'm going to ask it anyway.
Right.
So you just talked about a professional pitcher with the yips, but coaches get players with bad habits, right? High school aged coaches, right? I'm a freshman JV varsity coach. They've been in youth sports. They get to me. And how do I discuss a bad habit with my now 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old kid? And how do I go about effectively helping them change those habits?
Yeah, great question, right? And I feel like in pro baseball, we were faced with this a lot, right? Because a lot of players make it to the minor leagues on talent alone,
Hmm.
right? And you get there, and that was good enough, right? Maybe they were the stud in high school, middle school, travel ball, whatever. And then they get to the pros, and we see this all the time, right? Hey, this skill you have, say your technique works at the level you're at, you're gonna get the shit kicked out of you in the big leagues if this is your technique.
Yeah.
Like, and it's very raw, and it's not like you're successful now, you're so right, and you can either continue doing that and hope it works, or we can introduce this new skill, this new pitch, this new grip, whatever it is we're talking about, and it's gonna make you even more of a threat when it comes to beating your opponents. And this is hard because you feel really confident in the way you do something, and it's something you've done for a long time, and you have to make the decision to take the chance that you could be even better,
Mm.
right? And you got to do your research, right? Don't just listen blindly, like, right? Hopefully this is coming from a coach or a guardian who you really trust, and who knows their stuff. And right, be warned for the coaches out there who are just making everybody do the same, right? Everybody shoots the same, everybody pitches the same, everybody hits the same. Like, that's not true, right? We all have different physiological features, and we all need to do things differently. But find somebody who you trust a lot and who knows you really, really well, and get their feedback and talk through that. And it's a decision. Again, it's a conscious decision you have to make. And then if you do make it, you have to kind of brace for impact, because as anybody knows, when you make a change from one thing to the next, it's going to get worse, significantly worse, before it gets significantly better. But if you can do that and trust the process, the goal is the outcome is a whole lot better than where you were. And by doing that, you're evolving into potentially a whole different performer, right? A whole different player.
I think you said, I mean, you said a lot of good stuff there, but one thing really important for coaches out there listening is make sure you know what you're teaching before you start trying to break a kid's habit.
Yeah, yeah,
And make sure that
yeah,
you are able to. And I think we oftentimes forget that kids learn, and everybody learns three different ways, like to see, hear, do, right? And you
yep,
can't just talk about what you want them to do. You need to show them how to do it, and using film of themselves to show them what is incorrect, and then being able to show them, get them on a loop of what it looks correctly,
yeah,
doing it correctly looks like, is something that is critical. And if you can't do that yourself and show that as a coach, find a player or somebody else that is doing it the right way to show how you're trying to get them to do it. Give them that visual of what that looks like.
yeah. I mean, I think the more you can talk, touch, show, watch, right, all encompassing, the more senses are going to be sparking, and the not necessarily faster they can pick it up, but maybe the easier chance of processing it quicker they have to eventually learn that new skill or adjust whatever skill that they have. But it definitely takes time, but I think it's worth the conversation, right? And habits form over time, right? Some form in, I think the minimum is like 2 weeks, a new habit starts to form.
Mm,
And to stick, it can take up to a month or 2 months, but some people are different, right? Some people it takes a lot longer than just 2 weeks, right? That's at the bare minimum. But if you think about that, like if you're listening to this, when's the last time you tried to change a habit and you stuck with something for 2 whole weeks?
yeah.
That's hard, right? Whether
Yeah.
it's a diet, a workout, screen time, limitations, whatever it is, like that's hard. And I don't think kids, youth, even like young, like even young adults, right? I don't think really process how to form a new habit, because typically they're just kind of told what to do and they do it, right? Whether it's right or wrong, good or bad habits. And so I think it's a really interesting topic to say, hey, I think we might have developed a bad habit here. How do we start shifting into and going into a better direction?
It's crazy. As we're talking about this, I just have a personal story that I was a thumber. As going into my 8th grade year, I was the thumber because I wasn't strong enough to shoot it. And my 8th grade coach, I got lucky, taped my thumb to my
Yeah,
hand every single day of
yeah,
my 8th grade practice. And I never thumbed again all the way through college. And then I coached for 5 years. And then I got to go a chance to go play in Japan. And all of a sudden I'm missing free throws and I have no idea why I'm missing free throws. Like I don't miss free throws. Like you're supposed to make them, right? I get what's going on. And I watched film and I'm back to thumbing. All of these years later, I hadn't done it since the 8th grade, but I hadn't intentionally. And so I went back to taping my thumb again at 27 years old, playing over in Japan, and it cured me again. So it's an ongoing process of keeping those things from coming back in.
And you just talked about one of the hardest parts of a habit. If you look at the cycles of change, like what it actually takes to change and form a habit, one of them is falling back into the cyclical process. So like, even though yours was years down the road, it still can happen. But what's cool is if you've created the habit, the reversal coming back to that good habit should happen overnight, right?
Yeah.
Or a whole lot quicker than the initial stage. But that's going to happen. And honestly, if it's a force of habit, right? If it's something you've done for 18 years, which a lot of these players have, right? Once they get to the minor leagues, it's not an easy habit to break. And some of these guys, it's not even on the field. Some of it's their diet, right? Maybe they've crushed McDonald's their whole life and now they're wanting to become a professional athlete and they realize they can't do that. And the dietitians look at it and I'm like, no, like, right. What if you could throw harder if you lowered fat percentage, right? Or gained more muscle mass? Like you can't be eating, crushing McDonald's and Coke, right? And so it's really interesting how difficult that is. But the first step of any change, of any habit, is understanding that there's something that needs to be changed. Then you have to accept it. So one is just to recognize, or somebody's like, hey, this has to happen. The second step is you accept that it has to happen. Then you start to figure out, okay, how do we actually make this change? Then you attempt to make the change. And that's one of the hardest parts because you got to stick with that, because that's the part where it's like, this ain't fun. I'm not enjoying this diet. I'm not enjoying this cardio. I'm not enjoying, throwing balls when I know I can throw strikes if I do it the old way, or maybe I'm losing some velo, whatever it is, right? And you got to stick with it. And then once the habit's formed, then honestly, it's like, okay, what's the next habit we have to break? What's the next thing we have to get really good at? And honestly, that's the process of becoming really good. Think about that, right? It's knowing all the minute details of what makes the best performers in whatever world you live in, sports, corporate America, whatever it is, what makes them great. And then what of those attributes do you have? Awesome. What do you not have? Okay, great. Those are our habit lists that we have to figure out if we want to be the best we can be.
That's so good. All right. So let's talk about old people now. Let's talk about me.
What's up?
So can you teach an old dog new tricks, right? For those out there listening right now, and not necessarily corporate America, but just a parent. Like I've got some parenting habits that I don't like, or you talked about food consumption and nutrition, whatever it might be. And I want to change that for myself as an older human. I'm not an athlete. I just have some stuff that I want to change. How do I go about starting that process? And I think you spoke to some of it just a few minutes ago, is understanding that you have the thing that you want to change. But what is that shift? What is that focus change for me as an older person?
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, you can. And
so there's hope for old dogs.
Yes, for old dogs.
Okay.
Old dogs can change get new tricks.
Okay.
But I think you have to realize, like, science tells us it's a lot harder, right? The older you get, it's significantly more challenging, right? Everybody knows, if you have a kid before the age of 3 and you're speaking 2 languages, they're going to be bilingual, right? Or they're more likely to learn languages versus I'm in my 50s, 60s, and I want to learn a new language. It's incredibly difficult. Is it impossible? Nope. People do it all the time, right? But it's a whole lot more difficult when you're 50 than when you were 2, which is kind of crazy to think about, right?
Yeah.
But it's how our brains develop. But you can, right? If you think about that, if you could learn a whole new language, like if you dedicated a year to learning a new language right now, you could do it. You could be fluent in any language you wanted to be. Isn't that crazy? So
it is crazy.
If you can do that, you can do anything.
Right.
The hardship in that is the commitment in doing it, right? And I think that goes hand in hand with having a real reason on why you would want to do it, right? So maybe I have a grandmother who lives in wherever across the country, lives in France, speaks French, and I've never gotten to know her. And I really want to know her before she passes away. So I want to learn French in a year. And all of a sudden, my motivation is through the roof because I can't wait to go build a relationship with my long lost grandmother, right? If you have the why, if the why is powerful enough, you can do anything you want to, right? But if you're just like, oh, that'd be fun, right? I think I want to learn French. I'm going to get Duolingo. I'm going to mess around, but like not really take it seriously, then like it's you're going to get the results that you put in, right? And so it's really understanding, and that's okay. I'm not saying that's wrong, right? If you just want to do it as a habit, beautiful. Just or as a hobby, beautiful. Do it. That's great. But if you're really trying to do something, if you're really trying to make a life change, maybe it's I want to lose weight so I can live longer and play with my grandkids longer. If it's I want to build muscle mass because I know muscle mass is important as I'm aging, and to be able to play with my kids, to be able to walk and still move when I get older, right? It's like my why is now my health goal, right? That's a deep why if you understand that. And so if you're looking to do anything, it's got to be internal motivation from you. It can't be, hey, you need to be healthier, Anthony, because I think you should be healthier. You're going to be like, okay, maybe you'll drink a protein shake instead of go get a milkshake, and then you'll never do anything, right? It's like, doesn't matter. It's truly got to be an intrinsic motivation and a deep why to your soul, your core, to make whatever those changes are. So if you're exploring something, and if you're wondering why I haven't really like connected with this or done it, it's probably because you don't really want to. If it's something you need to do, even though you don't want to do it, really explore why you need to do it. And maybe if you start processing that, right, whether it's health or longevity or happiness or enjoyment, maybe you reach something where you're like, what if this could make me genuinely happier in life? And like that should in theory be motivating, right? To do whatever it is. So it's balance, but it's a lot of self-exploration, as is most things. But if you have that why, the why and the will, I guess, is the way to break those habits and to form new habits. And it's never too late. Again, it's harder. And I think that's reaffirming to hear. Like it's not easy. Like you can do anything, but it's definitely challenging the older you get.
Yeah, anything worthwhile most of the time is hard to do, which is why it's worthwhile. Or everybody would just have millions
why
of
not a
dollars
lot
in
of
the
people
bank,
do
right?
it? Exactly. Yeah, 100%.
Let's talk to leaders in corporate America, leaders in any sort of organization, not dealing with kids, dealing with adults. And I recognize talent in somebody, but I also see that there's some habits there that are keeping them from achieving where they need to go and what they want for themselves and what we want for them within the organization. How do I have that conversation with another grown up about, hey, you're not getting to your potential here because you have this thing that is holding you back, whether that's, I'm shitty to my coworker or I procrastinate on whatever that might be. What is that? How do I broach that subject with somebody that works for me to help them along the way?
Yeah, hard conversations, right? And as a leader, you sign up to have hard conversations. So I think you have to remember that. If you're not having hard conversations, I'd argue you're potentially not a good leader.
Yeah.
Bold statement, but I'll say it. So I think when it comes to talking to somebody about something really big, like a big issue or a big thing that needs to change, especially if it's like a personality trait, you have to approach gently. And I would say that shouldn't be your first like topic of conversation. I think you have to build a long-standing relationship, right? If you're going to go in with a big bold stance on something, you also have to make sure you're 100% right and get others' opinions maybe. And maybe that's what caused it, right? Maybe you've been getting feedback from whoever middle management on a leader you have in the group, and there's a specific thing that needs to be changed. You need to make sure it's true. And then I would honestly go into it with a pretty open conversation about it. Like, let's talk about your performance as a whole. Let's talk about the good. Let's talk about the areas of improvement. And then let's talk about the big one. Like, and I don't think you have to approach it in this like, hey, we got to talk about this. Like, please don't do that. Nobody likes that on either end, right? It's like, so let's talk about the elephant in the room, right? There's something going on that I firmly believe is holding you back. And I'm not the only one who thinks this, but I love you. I want, or maybe you say that, maybe you don't, depending on the job, right? But I know you're killing it right now, and I know you could do even better. Hit them with whatever motivation they want. You could get a promotion, you could make more money, you could be happier, you could have better life balance, right? Whatever their things are, which you should know this. If you could approach it this way, do you feel the same way? Have you ever been told this before? Have you ever worked on this before? Do you want to work on this? If so, how can we create an environment to help you really get better at this? Those questions in that order make it the least threatening conversation ever. Wow, this person thinks I can make more money, thinks I have potential to get a raise, a promotion, better work-life balance. And then they asked, have I ever thought about it before? Yeah, actually, my old boss told me that once, and I didn't really think anything of it. Have I ever tried anything for it? Not really, because I didn't realize it was really holding me back that much. And now we're solution focused. So what can we do? Maybe my boss doesn't even know the answer, and I clearly don't know the answer. I probably would be doing something. So now we can work together to talk to somebody, or maybe they're going to pay for me to go get a coach, because a lot of people in corporate America do that. They're like, go get a life coach, go get a mental performance coach, go see a counselor, whatever it is, right? And we will pay for it because we know this is going to make you so much better. I mean, like, if somebody told me that and with a habit form, like that's how I think you really have difficult conversations, and you take the threat, you suck at this, you need to be better at this, figure it the hell out, see ya. Right. And I mean, I think anybody who hears that is like, that actually sounds pretty good. And it's not fluff. It's very real. It's not incredibly pessimistic, and it's not incredibly optimistic either. It's honestly just real and raw and honest and emotionless, and coming at it from a place of, I see you, I see your potential. Are you interested in reaching that potential? And you as the leader have to be okay with it being like, nah, I'm good. Right. Like, and I think we've talked about that in the past, like, let them be whatever they want to be. And then if they don't, then that's okay. Like, that's their decision. If you need somebody else to step up and be what you wanted them to be, then that's on you to go find somebody else. Right. But and then the ball is fully in their court, and they get to make the decision on if they want to make this change and reach even higher potential, or if they're going to stay in the land of comfort.
We've talked about this a lot, you and I, over the course of this podcast, but the idea of how you start a conversation, the first couple sentences of that goes a long way of how that message is going to be received, and how you just broke that down of starting that with, if this person really just sucks at everything, you should let them go, right? Like, but if they're really good and they're really talented, yes, it is. It's okay. That's your decision to make as the leader, right?
100%.
But if they have great potential, but there's something holding them back, and you start with just what's holding them back, there's not the message is going to be hard for them to take. Whether it's in coaching in athletics, or coaching and getting the most out of people in the workplace, the same holds true. Start that with, this is what you're great at. This is what I really like about what you're doing. And here is that elephant that we can help you fix together if you're interested, to help you achieve more. You nailed it.
Yeah. Not easy, but again, it's okay.
And as a leader, make that your habit. That's 100%. How you start. Speaking of habits, 100%. As leader, make that your habit of how you start your conversation.
And just having hard conversations. Like, if you're a leader and you're like, it's been a minute since I've had a hard conversation, I would challenge that. Right? Like, you want your people, your team, to be uncomfortable, constantly getting better. Are you? Yeah. And I think a lot of times as leaders, it's so easy to be like, this person needs that, Hannah needs that, Anthony needs this. Well, what do you need? Right? How can you get better? And we lose sight of that when you're in a position, whether it's power or you've got so much going on. I'm actually working with a high-level executive right now, and we were talking about, I'll keep it pretty vague, but we were talking about a specific thing that she's done, and she's kind of been delegating it a little bit here and there. And it was like, wait, it would actually be more advantageous for me to do it myself than to delegate. And it was like this huge aha moment of, how I can actually be better is by holding on to the reins a little tighter in this one area, versus like, but I've been at the top and I've just delegated, which is how you make it to the top. But it was really interesting on like such subtle changes, but the lens has always been on everybody else, not on her. And this is her first time ever with coaching. And it was an unbelievable conversation, Because it was like the littlest thing. She was like, how did I not think of that? And I'm like, because you're too busy worried about everybody else, which is your job. Right. And so it's like, if you're a leader, it's let coaches, let support, even let yourself look inside of you and figure out what you need to be working on, just like everybody else has got to work on stuff too. Like, don't lose sight of that just because you got the dream job or the leadership role or whatever it is.
Well, that's why we have Jason Cardona as our producer, Emmy award-winning producer, is constantly helping me be better at what I do, and he's never afraid to let me know. I appreciate that deeply. Well, Hannah, this has been awesome. Anything else on habits in general before we sign off on our 17th show here?
No, I think just remember, it's not easy, right? It doesn't come easy. If anybody makes a habit look easy, run the other direction, right? It's not easy. It's not gimmicky. There's no freaking shortcut, unfortunately. And like you said, anything worth getting takes time. It takes discipline. It takes enjoying the boredom of it, right? Like, oh, it's the same thing every day. Yeah, that's how you create a habit, right? It's embracing the consistency of all of it, but they're not easy. And there's a quote now, like, choose your hard, right?
Yeah.
It's either going to be hard to do the habit, or it's going to be hard if you choose not to learn the new habit and decide to stick with whatever bad habit you have right now. So choose your hard. Do you want to embrace the new and see where that could take you? Or do you want to stay complacent or potentially go the other direction, right? And build a habit in the other way. But it's not easy, and you're not alone. And if you're trying to change a habit, get a good support system. That's the last thing I'll say.
Good stuff. All right, Hannah, how do we find you? How do people that want to follow you, where can we find you?
All over social media. My website is hannahhuesman.com, or you can say hi on LinkedIn and all the things. But thanks for tuning in.
All right, Hannah, thank you so much. I will talk to you again soon.
Thanks for having me.